It's the drawing show. Welcome back to another episode of the drawing show. My name's Ben Kent, and today I'm going to teach you how to be able to draw a head in any angle, from any angle. So to do that, we're going to do some Loomis heads. And the first part of drawing a Loomis head is drawing a circle. So this might actually be a good time to just practice drawing circles. All right, we're going to keep going here. This first head that we're doing from any angle, our first angle is going to be straight on. So I've got some guidelines, two intersecting lines going through that circle, one horizontal and one vertical, and we're trying to bisect the circle with both of those lines right down the middle. That horizontal line is going to be our brow line, and that middle line is just the center line down our face that we're drawing. And our camera is going down because we are drawing the next one. That bottom part underneath, obviously, is going to be the chin line. This next face we're drawing is going to be still on the same horizontal plane, but turned slightly. So we've got more of a 3/4 head turn. So that horizontal line will stay relatively straight, but the vertical line you can see is curved, and that's following that contour line of the front of the face. You can also see we've got a circle or an oval shape on the side of the head, and that's representing the side of the head is not as round and is a little bit more flat. So that's where the ear is actually going to sit. So it's almost kind of like we're chopping off that edge of the sphere, because that's essentially what we're trying to do, is create a sphere to be more of the foundation of our head. This next face we're going to draw is going to be straight on, but slightly tilted downward. So the face straight on with us, but looking down slightly. So our vertical center line will stay straight up and down, and then our horizontal contour line will be like it's wrapping around the front and underside, slightly underside of the circle, like somebody's looking down. You can draw a couple more lines to represent that face pointed downwards. Next, we're going to combine the two so that both will be off center. So we get our circle in. So head slightly tilted back and slightly looking up. So that is our front center line. And this is our horizontal wrapping around. This is the side of the head right here where the ear will be. On that plane, you're basically making a plane of the face. And that part, that little semicircle on the side of the head, that really should be coming up a little bit more, because that's coming almost, well, it is coming all the way to the brow line, right up to the eye. This is our chin. Now when we're drawing things like this, there's some foreshortening going on. Now those of you who don't know what foreshortening is, It is as something is going away from you, it is getting smaller and flatter. And it looks like the thing that's closer to you is getting bigger, and the thing that's farther away from you is getting a little bit smaller. So these are things you need to keep in mind when you're drawing things at different angles. Now I'm going to show you a quick example of how to draw a face on top of the Loomis head. We're measuring things out. I'm not using a reference here. I'm just going by what's in my head and my basic knowledge of proportions on a face. So this is going to be very, very generic. Not super interesting, but you'll get the overall idea of how to put a face onto a Loomis head. So first we're just finding where everything is located. The nose line is going to be about halfway down in between the brow line and the bottom of the chin. The mouth obviously is under that, but it's not exactly halfway down. Usually a good way to go about it is go halfway down and then go up just a little bit. It's typically how I find the position of the mouth. But also, with all of this stuff, you're going to have to make changes here and there as you're going along. So be ready to erase when you need to and move things around. You don't always get the position of everything right the first time, so don't worry about that. Just during this part of the drawing, it's just about getting stuff down on the paper and observing. You're always observing, you're always reassessing where you're putting things. If you need to change things, don't worry about it, just change it. Not a big deal. Try not to get married to your lines too quickly. You need to be able to change things up and not just, seriously, don't worry about having to do that. So now you could tell that I put a line underneath the brow line straight across. That is really going to help you put your eyes on the same line. A big mistake that a lot of people tend to do with eyes is they have one eye slightly higher than the other one, and even just the slightest little difference in height in those eyes is going to be super noticeable. And in most of these things that you're putting on the paper, that you're drawing with the face, the reason why this stuff is so difficult is that it really is the slightest little thing can really, really change the way that the drawing looks and if it's successful or not. There's little tricks and things that you can do, but if something is slightly off, sometimes even just the slightest bit, it's very, very noticeable. And you all know what I'm talking about. You've seen really, really well rendered portraits where something is a little off and you can't not stare at it. So just make sure you're aware of that and just continually reassessing. Sit back a little bit after you draw for a little bit before you get too far and, that eyeball's a little weird, and then just change it. Easier to make changes at the beginning of your drawing than towards the end once you've already got a bunch of detail in there. Number one, it's harder to erase all that stuff, but also too, it's harder mentally because you've put in so much work. I don't really feel like erasing that. When you've put in less work and something's noticeably wrong, change it then. But sometimes we get super far in the drawing and we don't notice it until we're really far into the drawing. At that point, you have to, assess, is it worth fixing? Sometimes it is, and, it may not feel very good to have to erase something that you just took a bunch of time to do and do it over. But sometimes that's what you have to do. That or start over. But that's also a hard thing to do sometimes too. So right now, I'm finding where some shadows might be. So with this, again, I'm just showing you basically how the elements of the face will kind of fit into this Loomis head. Typically, you don't want to do too much detail too quickly. And usually once I kind of find where everything is on the face, before I start adding really much of any detail at all, I'll start finding those shadows. And to block them in, I'm really just very simple shapes, drawing them in, filling them in, and just getting that idea of everything kind of in there. I'm really not looking for anything super detailed at all. Because again, we want to check this stuff and make sure everything's in the right spot so that we can make changes early on in the process. I'm getting a little crazy here with the eyes. Not even, I'm just kind of filling them in a little bit. Apparently I'm exasperated. Okay, so the hairline, it's not all the way to the top of the head, but it's about the distance between the brow and the bottom of the nose is that distance up the forehead to the hairline. Now I'm filling in some hair. So a good trick with hair, it's not going to work with everybody's hair, but if you've got a hairstyle kind of like this, rather than drawing all the strands of the hair, just block things in. So we've got a light source coming from the left, the guy's right, but our left looking at him. And so I'll just block in a little section of where his hair is that I want to darken, and that's going to be on the right side of his hair because the light is hitting the left side. So I'll make that a little bit darker, represent what's going on. This is very simple, just showing how this kind of works. I'm going to draw his neck here so you can kind of get an idea of his cast shadow from his head down onto his neck. And that's going to go to the right. Yep, just like that. And just quickly fill this in. Doesn't have to be crazy. Darkening up a little bit more, and the further right we go. We won't get into too much detail as far as shading goes and reflected light onto the shadows or anything like that. But so that's basically it. How you're going to fill in all of the facial parts, elements onto the Loomis head. And in another episode, we will do the same with some of these other heads. where they are pointed in different angles. And we'll be getting into some of the foreshortening and different perspective that goes into drawing a face or a portrait from different angles. But for now, this is where we'll leave it. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. And we'll see you next time. Okay, bye.